Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an article from CNBC. It was published on March 8th. It's written by Robert Frank. Now, the reason why I'm covering this article is because New York is psychotic on collecting their taxes. And the funny thing is they're trying to, like in this article, basically blame the Republicans and Trump for the tax cuts on them having to be as psychotic as they are, because New York needs that money. Anyway, the title here: Tax collectors chase rich New Yorkers moving to low tax states. Auditors inspect cell records, even your dog's vet bills. Now, these are the key points here. New York conducted about 3,000 non-residency audits a year between 2010 and 2017, collecting around $1 billion, according to a data company. New York is looking at cell phone records, social media feeds, and veterinary and dentist records in verifying residency, which the dentist thing and the vet thing, I mean, when you're talking healthcare, if you have a doctor you like, I don't care if it's for your pet or yourself, like whether it's a dentist, your primary care physician, or whatever. If you've got money, you're going to travel to see that doctor. That's what it comes down to. You're going to keep your doctor. Auditors are even conducting in-home inspections to look inside taxpayers' refrigerators. Now that right there, I mean, they're coming into people's homes and checking their fridges. It's ridiculous. If New York is so worried about these people leaving and fleeing to states like Florida where there's no income tax or estate tax, then maybe they should lower their taxes and not rely on the federal government to cover for them overtaxing people and then having to pay for them doing that. If they didn't rely on that, lower their taxes, they wouldn't have to worry about this. Anyway, the cat and mouse game between state tax collectors and wealthy New Yorkers who are moving to Florida has reached new levels and gone high tech. Checking someone's social media, looking at their cell phone information, not really that high tech, but okay. New federal tax laws limiting the deduction of state and local income taxes have created incentives for wealthy New Yorkers to move to Florida or other lower tax states. So what they're doing is they're saying, well, because of the Republicans and their tax cut, it's incentivized these people to leave because they're paying way more money now. Well, don't rely on the federal government, as I said, to cover your asses because you're overtaxing people, and you wouldn't have this problem. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo last month blamed wealth flight for the state's $2.3 revenue shortfall in December and January. How about it's the fact that you've created that situation? How about you blame yourself? How about you blame the Democrats? You are the ones who created the situation where these people have said, you know what? We were putting up with the high taxes before because at least the federal government gave us a chunk of change back. But, you know, you don't want to work with us. You don't want to cut the taxes. So with that gone, so you know what? See ya. And you don't like that. It's your fault. It's not Trump's fault. It's not the Republicans' fault. It is New York Democrats' fault that the taxes are too high in the state and in like the city of New York with the additional taxes you have within the city limits. Tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich, he said. We did. Now, God forbid the rich leave. Oh, wow, what an incredulous asshole. You know what, buddy? Of course they're going to leave. You tax the rich. You listened to the New York hobnobby elites that, you know, the political elites, the hacks that have to pander to the gimme, gimme, gimme crowd. And you listened to them, and now they're leaving. But the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance is making sure that high earners who try to leave don't escape without an audit and a bill. So, to me, I'm sorry. If I decide to leave your state, that is not, I don't care what my income level is, that is not an indication for you to audit me. The only reason why you would audit someone is if you're worried about them doing something suspicious. So I would love for someone to challenge this in a court of law, because they're automatically assuming you're hiding tax money without any evidence of it and then investigating you. The IRS can't even do that. They cannot investigate you without any reason to investigate you. New York is justifying you saying, you know what, I'm sick of the taxes in this state. They're using that as their grounds to investigate. Someone should be fighting this in court. That's complete horseshit. It truly is. That is so ridiculous. This is why I'm covering this article, because it shows the lunacy of the Democrats and the left. If you decide to leave one of their shithole cities, one of their shithole states, like New York, they're going to make sure that they get every penny out of you that they can before you do. And use the fact that you're leaving as probable cause to audit you so that they can. I mean, that's so disgustingly vile. New York conducted about 3,000 non-residency audits a year between 2010 and 2017, collecting around $1 billion, according to Moneo, a company that sells an app for tracking and proving tax residency. You shouldn't have to have an app to do that. But when you have cities and states like New York that, you know, relied on the federal government to cover their asses, well, I should say the state of New York, but the city of New York is a big part of that because that's where the largest congregation of people tend to be in that state. But because they've created an environment, you have to, I'm sorry, this just really gets me. You need an app, you know, to cover your ass. Yeah, you know, they cause people to flee, and you got to cover your ass 16 ways from Sunday. It's ridiculous. I mean, they're $1 billion. Yes, that's a lot of money, but you know what? You don't have probable cause to audit someone because they decide to say, I'm done with you. I'm done. You know, I'm leaving your little party. And I'm not talking the political party. I'm talking the little party, the hobnob and shit in New York City. Chance of an audit, 100%. I mean, you got to love that for a title. That's messed up that you, like I said, you decide to leave the state, you're getting audited. More than half of those who were audited lost their cases, and the average collected by New York State between 2015 and 2017 was $144,270 per audit, Moneo said. In addition to the traditional audit methods the state uses to make sure a taxpayer isn't gaming the system, like checking taxpayers' credit card bills and travel schedules, New York officials are using a whole new set of high-tech tools, including tracking cell phone records, social media feeds, and veterinary and dentist records. Auditors are even conducting in-home inspections to look inside taxpayers' refrigerators. This is some, like, 1984 levels of, like, twisted shit because New York has to get its tax money. Literally, it's Big Brother bullshit so that they can get their tax money. Oh, this is ridiculous. So they're going to check your credit card bills. Heaven forbid, you know, you buy shit. I'm sorry, this is just some funny shit. They're going to check your travel schedule. So how the hell are they going to check your itinerary? I mean, are they going to go and buy the travel information for every airline? They're going to spend all this money to track people, to collect. Yeah, it's penny wise, dollar stupid. They're going to, you know, look at your social media, you know, track your cell phone, which they're talking about tracking the GPS of your cell phone. The fact that you have left the state should not be probable cause for an audit, never mind an investigation. How the hell are they getting a warrant to look at your GPS tracking data? That is complete horseshit. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm covering this. This is 1984 levels of demented shit just so that they can get some tax money. This is one reason why I'm glad I have never lived in New York, nor would I ever want to live in New York. If I was to become rich, I would avoid that state at any cost because, you know, if you want to become a politician, all you have to do is take up residency in a hotel room and boom, you can run for Senate. Look at Hillary Clinton. She did it. But you can't spend, you know, you have to spend, was it like they say, like 183 days away or some shit like that, minimum or something, in order to prove that you're not a resident. But then you have to track your own GPS data with an app like this company has here to prove it. I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, and the fact that they would, you know, look at your social media feeds. This is, what if you keep your social media feed, say, family and friends only? Are they going to require access to it? Are they going to demand it? I mean, you don't have probable cause to do an investigation for tax evasion or anything like that, but yet you do it. So how are they gaining access to that? And the biggest thing that gets me is like I said, veterinary and dentist records. You know, your pet, like in my case, my cat, it's like my kid. You know, you know, if I could afford the best doctor in the world for her, if she was ever sick, you know, I would do it, you know, type thing. Because she's family to me. You go and you take yourself or your family, whether it's your child, your animal, your pet, whatever the case may be, you take them to a doctor you trust. Your teeth, your general practice, you know, like going to a general, you know, to a dentist with that on the note of your teeth, a general practitioner, a specialist if you've got a condition. You go to a doctor you trust. If you've got money, you're going to travel to go to those doctors. So to me, this is complete horseshit, because say you have someone, because New Hampshire doesn't have like income tax and estate tax, stuff like that, like Florida. One of these rich people moves to New Hampshire, you know, gets a mansion in the mountains or some shit. They live here. New York isn't that far from New Hampshire. They could, you know, in theory, travel to take themselves or their family, you know, whether it's a child or a spouse, whatever the case may be, their pet, whatever. They can take them to New York. It might be inconvenient, you know, from like say a normal person's perspective, but if you got money, you deal with stuff like that. You're not driving the trip, someone else is driving it, you're kicking back. You're going into the city, you're going to go and buy some stuff, you know, stuff like that. They're going to look at that and try to use that to hang you. This is just ridiculous. When they're talking about doing the whole thing with the looking at veterinary and dentist records, and this idea of going into a person's home to look at their refrigerator, you shouldn't, when they're making claims about you, this is an idea that the whole situation with this is you're guilty until proven innocent, and you have to supposedly somehow prove your innocence. How the hell is that the case? Shouldn't it be? I mean, considering our legal system is based on the fact of innocent until proven guilty, it's the state's responsibility for them to prove that you're doing this. They shouldn't be having you help them make the case by forcing their way into your home and without like any real foundation for it, because they have no ground to say, because you're leaving, you must be evading taxes, which is how they're doing these audits. Which, if you don't have that, you have nothing. How the hell are they getting away with this? This is such twisted shit. If you're a high earner in New York and you move to Florida, your chances of a residency audit are 100%, said Barry Horowitz, a partner at the Witham Smith. Oh, there's supposed to be a space there. Witham Smith and Brown accounting firm. New York has always been aggressive, but it's getting worse. Mark Klein, chairman of Hodgson Russ Tax Attorneys, said his office is now working on about 200 tax residency audits, and the number is growing as more wealthy New Yorkers head for the exits. You know, they would solve this problem if they just did a tax cut. If they did a tax cut, these people would stay. But they're so greedy that New York thinks that they can keep the tax rate up and try to keep these people there through hook or crook. It's funny. Well, you know, we'll intimidate people and make it so that they might not want to leave, because if they're guaranteed an audit, they just might not want to deal with it, because, you know, they're probably being shady with their taxes and they really don't want all of it to come to light. I mean, that's, I'm sure, part of the mentality here. We're seeing a huge uptick in our practice, Klein said. I'm seeing dozens of extremely high-income individuals actually leaving New York. I would, if I was extremely rich, I wouldn't need this I wouldn't have needed this as a reason. I would have been gone out of there well before this point. You could be jet setting around the world if you're extremely wealthy, going all over the place. Why would you stay in a city like New York? I mean, yeah, the glitz, the glamour, it all wears off. Times Square, big fucking whoop, woohoo! The opera, woohoo! You know, Broadway, woohoo! It all wears out. Fake moves. New York's tax department declined to comment on its specific audit strategies or numbers. A spokesman said, ensuring taxpayers pay their fair share is a top priority. Our non-resident audit program continues to be very active. They're non-residents. That means they shouldn't be a taxpayer to you, period. You shouldn't be doing this. Yet tax advisors and lawyers to the wealthy say the state is going to ever greater lengths to ensure that tax migrants aren't faking a move to Florida to avoid taxes. The stakes are high. The combined New York City and state taxes are now 12.7%, while Florida has no income tax or estate tax. The new federal law limits deductions for state and local taxes, known as SALT, to $10,000, making it even more costly for high earners in high tax states like New York. Well, when you're paying 12.7%, I'd get the fuck out of Dodge myself too if I was in that situation. Jesus Christ. They're charging, the city's charging a shit ton, the state's charging a shit ton, and then they wonder why people are leaving. And then they're holding on to them, like, literally, by the pant leg, trying to pickpocket them as they're trying to leave and get away from them. This is ridiculous. At the same time, New York can't afford to lose many millionaires or billionaires. The top 1% of earners pays 46% of the state's income taxes, and Cuomo said that even if a small number of taxpayers leave, it has a dramatic effect on this tax base. Well, that should tell you. They are not beholden to you. You are beholden to them. If you want them to stay, you need to cut the taxes. It is that simple. But see, you don't want to do that. You relied on the federal government to pick up the slack so that you could be greedy shitbags. And now that it isn't, you're crying foul and going, well, you can't leave. And you're like some sick, twisted girlfriend that's been kicked to the curb, and you're holding on going, no, you can't leave. I don't want you to leave. No, gimme. I still want you to pay for all my shit. It's unbecoming. Pick yourself up off the ground, dust yourself off, and show a little respect. Or I should say self-respect. Because you have none the way you guys are acting. Stories of the wealthy continue counting the number of days they spend in New York and Florida to make sure they comply with the residency rules has been a staple of the New York and Palm Beach social circuit for decades. Well, yeah, because the way these assholes are, I would keep track of every day. Even though they could blur one into the next, I would use that as my way to make sure, like I would keep track of days with that. I would make sure I would know what day of the week it is, how many days I've been gone out of New York. Oh, I would be like anal retentive about it because there is no way I would pay them an effing dime. No goddamn way I would pay them a dime. This is ridiculous. Conventional wisdom holds that if you're out of New York State for 183 days, you don't have to pay state taxes. But tax advisors say that while the number of days matter, the real test for auditors is domicile, being able to prove that a taxpayer's permanent primary home is in Florida rather than in New York. The domicile test has become increasingly complicated as today's migratory rich maintain 4 or 5 homes and really spend much time in any one place. Which to me, if you're doing that, that should be enough said. If you're hopping from city to city to city to city, community, state to state, whatever, out of the country, whatever the case may be, if you're going from home to home to home, you're clearly not a resident at that place. You're not a resident in New York. It shouldn't be any more complicated than that. Now, where the heart is, it's about proving where you really live, where your heart is. Horowitz of Witham, Smith, and Brown said, you have to show you've truly cut ties to New York and that the things that are most near and dear to you are in Florida. Right, which near and dear, medical care should not fall under that, but for whatever reason it does. Auditors now check to make sure taxpayers' homes in New York is small. A taxpayer's home in New York is smaller and less expensive than his or her home in Florida. Now, wait a minute. If I decide to leave New York, but I want to keep my home there, I go to another place, I buy another home. What is it their business, and how is it any proof that I'm a New York resident if my new home happens to be smaller? What if I rent out part of that other home? What if I rent it all out? You're still going to try to claim because that house is bigger in New York, my residency or my house in New York, however you want to look at it. I can't say residency because you're not residing there, but you know what I mean. The property you have in New York, because it's bigger, that's proof you're a resident automatically. That's complete horseshit. This is what I mean. This is why I'm covering this. This is such messed up like shit. There's no logic to it. It's just, well, your home's bigger here. Well, that means you live in New York. Even though you could be living in Florida, you buy a condo in Florida, you have a house in, say, New York. Like, we'll say a penthouse in New York. You're living in a condo, a multi-million-dollar condo. It's smaller, but hey, that means you live in New York. This is the logic they're using. That makes no sense. Because you could also be looking at the property as an investment. Why are you going to sell an investment? That makes no sense whatsoever. Tax collectors want to see if a taxpayer's prized artwork, wedding albums, family photos, safe deposit box, and most cherished jewelry are also in Florida. Having a wealth manager in Florida and a country club membership there is also a must. Also, if a taxpayer's dentist is in New York rather than Florida, that's a red flag for auditors. See, this is what I mean. This is some messed up logic. So you have a home. You're keeping it as an investment. You travel a lot, but you buy a home in Florida. You don't need as big of a home in Florida. You don't need to move all of your artwork down there. You don't need to move your safe deposit box down there. You're traveling all throughout the country and the world. If you want to keep banking at a particular bank, I mean, that's your prerogative. That's your business. That does not mean you're a resident. If you want to give a bank in New York business and you live out of state, that's your prerogative. If you don't want to move your wedding albums and your family photos to your new home because you're going to keep the other one and it's, you're keeping it, for the monetary reasons, the investment reason, it's property, it's an asset, and you're still going to use it, to me, this is complete horseshit. That shouldn't matter. And the jewelry. People take their jewelry with them in most cases. I mean, yes, there's going to be some things, but if you have really expensive pieces of jewelry, you're not going to take them all with you if you're traveling. That makes absolutely no sense. And this idea of having a wealth manager in Florida, if you've got someone in New York managing your money and you don't live in New York, that should not be a red flag. I mean, this is literally grasping at straws type shit to go after people's money. This idea of a country club membership, okay, if you've got the money and you want to go golf and all that stuff, yes, you're going to have a country club membership. But what if you're not the type of person to go to a country club? Oh, well, that's a red flag. Give me a break. And this idea of your dentist being in New York, again, if you have a doctor you like and you're rich as all hell, you're going to travel. You got no problems. If you're like, well, I go to New York every 6 months, or I go to New York this amount of time, I stop in for a day or two or a week or, a month, and it's like every 6 months or something, and you go and you do that. All right. You can have your dentist there. You can have your primary care physician there. You might, on the note of a primary care physician, just in case, might have a doctor where you've moved to, but you might still go see this other doctor that you've been seeing for years. This has no basis in reality as for proof that you're a New York resident. People should be fighting this shit. It is one thing to seek specialized medical treatment at a New York hospital, client said, but auditors know that most people don't travel to another state for their dentist. Really? There have been points in my life where my dentist was in another state, asshole. I mean, it could be the fact that I live in New England. You know, I live in New Hampshire, and you've got Vermont and Maine and Massachusetts bordering the state. But my dentist and my doctors have been in other states. Jesus Christ. The family dog. Another big audit test. Dogs. Client of Hodgson Russ. Wow, I can't even say that right now. And others recommend that clients keep their dogs in Florida and hire veterinarians there. Pets are considered part of the family, client said. So if you want to lose a case very quickly, kennel your dog in New York when you travel. But, well, wait a minute. Here's the thing. What if you travel to New York from Florida? You're then traveling to Europe. You're going to kennel your dog? You're going to fly them back by themselves to be kenneled in Florida, or are you going to kennel them in New York? There are easy explanations and justifications for these types of things. Yet, New York's tax people, they're tax collectors. They're scumbag, shit-eating, shouldn't be able to sleep at night, you know, robbers, you know, thieves. Because what they're doing here is kind of thievery. It's sleazy because they've got no initial proof and they're going after people. But I'm going to use the fact that you kenneled your dog in New York. But I just gave a good example of why that might be the case after leaving the state. And they're going to say, oh, you're guilty. That's what they're using to find guilt. This is ridiculous. Auditors have been known to visit people's pied à terre in New York to check refrigerators and dresser drawers to make sure taxpayers don't reside there full time anymore. I had one audit where the agent opened the refrigerator and the stuff had been sitting there for a year and a half, Horowitz said. We won the case. Well, yeah. But New York has a new arsenal of high-tech weapons to use in its residency audits. Tax experts say the state now can retrieve a taxpayer's cell phone records to check the location of all the calls they make and receive. Now, okay, it isn't bad enough that they're going in your fridge and they're checking the dates on your food. To me, that's overkill. To me, the way they're violating a person's home like that to collect some tax money is ridiculous. But here they are. They've got new high-tech ways. They're checking cell phone records for the GPS location on all your calls. This is ridiculous. That's wrong. Auditors have also checked people's social media feeds to make sure they are being truthful about their location. Are they going to fake being a friend or family if someone's account's locked to do that? Or are they going to demand to see the person's social media? I mean, this is ridiculous. Taxpayers, in turn, are using their own high-tech tools. Moneo calls itself a personal and audit defense system and sells an app and web interface that allows users to easily track and log their days in and out of a state to make sure they don't exceed the limit. Wow. When you need something like that, it's pretty bad. Moneo said use of its personal edition app is up 51% in 2018 over 2017. I mean, this is some messed up shit. And then at the end, they even admit where you're living is subjective. And of course, New York is going to use anything they can to try to claim that you're living there so that they can get their money. Or your money would be more accurate because they want your money. Domicile is subjective because defining domicile is subjective. Oh, excuse me. New York ends up winning more than half of its tax residency audits, meaning it collects the state income taxes for the year. The state can also keep coming back for more. Tax lawyers say it is not uncommon for clients to be audited for 2 or 3 years in a row. I mean, that is some horse shit. Why the hell aren't these people suing them? Wow, this is ridiculous. People should be like getting attorneys and filing lawsuits against the state of New York in federal court. And New York City, because they're in cahoots with this shit too, probably. I mean, because they want their tax money. Wow. Some audits can drag on for 5 years or more. Wow. Taxpayers can appeal their audit results, but most end up settling, according to accountants and lawyers. Yeah, they end up settling. So a lot of those settlements are $144,000, $145,000 that they're talking about. I'm sure they said, look, we're going to throw you in jail. Pay us this money or your ass is going to jail. Because that's how the federal government works usually with this tax shit. They hold jail over your head. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. The real goal for the wealthy who move out of New York, however, is to escape the estate tax, which is 16% on estates above $5.5 million. For a New Yorker worth $100 million, being forced to pay a year or two of state income tax after an audit is worth it to avoid the estate tax. Yeah, I would, but if you would think that they would set up the estate out of state anyways. Oh, God, this is so messed up. New York is so desperate. We call it the golden ticket, Klein said. The goal of a residency audit is to get the golden ticket of written confirmation from New York that you are no longer a resident. We have seen some auditors who say, look, this is an ambiguous case, but if you come up with X dollars, then we can see the change of domicile. So basically, they're bribing people. That's what he's getting at. They're bribing people. You throw us this money and we'll finally write you off as a non-resident. Oh my God, that is some freaking sick, twisted shit. This is ridiculous. This is like kind of like what happened with New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Now, where I live, and this is a little bit different story, but it's kind of the same premise. And this was actually known throughout the whole state when this happened, because it kind of became, it blew up in another state's face, we'll say. When I was a small kid, now, New Hampshire, we have state liquor stores. We don't have package stores or, liquor stores that are like privately owned. Well, Massachusetts and South, like Connecticut, they're called packies, but, and Rhode Island too. But we don't have them, okay? We have a state liquor store. You can't buy, like, in other states, like you can go into, say, Walmart and buy hard liquor right off the shelf. You can't do that here. It's all by the state. Well, the state is smart about it. They put these liquor stores along the borders because, Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts have way higher prices and way more taxes on alcohol. And Massachusetts didn't like the fact that they were losing out on all this tax revenue from people crossing the border and buying alcohol in New Hampshire. So in one of these border towns, what they would do, and they actually did this in a few of them. I should say they did it in more than one. But in one, the local chief of police and the state police were sick of the shit because it was one of their higher volume ones, because of its location in regards to highways and such. And what ended up happening is Massachusetts had the cops from the town over the border and the state police in unmarked cars hanging out outside the liquor store. And what they would do is they would track all the Massachusetts tags, and they would follow them back across over the border to Massachusetts, and they were busting them for, like bootlegging, illegal transportation of alcohol, tax avoidance, all this stuff, looking for revenue. And what ended up happening is the local chief of police in one of the towns and the state police, they got together and they started arresting these state police and these local cops that were out of their jurisdiction. And it put up this big stink, and Massachusetts tried to cry foul and say, that's not fair. And New Hampshire said, wait a minute, you're coming across our state line and operating as law enforcement illegally in our state, and you have the balls to cry not fair? Excuse me? And Massachusetts tried to play that, and it blew up in their faces, and they had to back off. And they stopped doing it. They begrudgingly stopped doing it. And for a while, on the other side of the border, this person must have stopped for alcohol. So they were just stopping people for routine stops, hoping to bust people. And then they finally
they got more flack and they let it die down. Then they tried again, the same exact thing, and the same exact thing happened with the town's chief of police and the state police. They did the same exact thing, and Mass got caught twice because they didn't like the fact that they were losing out on all this money on alcohol with the taxes. This is no different. I mean, it's on a bigger scale, obviously, and they're targeting rich people, but the concept and the idea is the same. They're literally trying to get these people without any proof. I mean, because they had no legal grounds to go and see these people buying alcohol without their being out of their jurisdiction. They can't use that. But, oh, it's routine traffic stop. Oh, look at this alcohol we found here. It's the same exact mentality. Now, when Massachusetts do that, it's out of desperation. When New York is doing it on this note, it's out of desperation. The point being, these Democrat states are going to do whatever they can to hold on to their tax revenue, and they're going to be clenching on to people's pants, trying to lift the money out of their pockets as they're leaving, and they think this is perfectly acceptable. Well, I say it isn't, and I'm sure a lot of you don't. I mean, I hope most of these people leave and New York has to shit themselves because they're freaking out, not knowing how they're going to pay for stuff, and then maybe they'll lower their taxes and come back to reality. Anyway, I've covered this well enough. I'm just going to leave things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.